Goucher College is a small liberal arts school in Baltimore County, Maryland, with an undergrad enrollment of under 1,600. There is an accepted narrative that the student body is accepting, forward-thinking, non-judgmental, and uniquely themselves. Goucher presents itself as such, but often differing views are not accepted or wanted. These norms govern a lot of the political and social issue-based discussions among students. This social concept is referred to as the Goucher Bubble and has a huge influence on the social structure of the school and how students interact on a day-to-day basis. Hi, I'm Abby.
I'm Eliana.
And welcome to
the Swan Station.
Today we're going to be diving into the concept of the Goucher Bubble and the sociological implications of it on Goucher College's campus. We hit the streets of Van Meter and got to know some students and their thoughts on the topic.
Do you believe in the Goucher Bubble?
Yes.
Do you believe it limits conversation?
Yes.
How do you do that?
I don't know. Because what else is there to talk about other than what's happening on campus?
Hello. Do you believe in the Goucher Bubble?
Yes, of course I believe in the Goucher Bubble.
Do you think it limits conversation on campus?
It definitely, I don't know if it limits conversation, but it definitely creates a narrative that is already expected to have within conversations. I think that everyone thinks that they think alike or thinks that they should think alike, but I don't know that if you took everyone out of the Goucher Bubble, they would actually act the same way as they do here.
Do you think we should pop the bubble?
Yes.
How do we do that?
I think that we should definitely have, or maybe like invite people or speakers who have varying opinions, create more spaces that maybe invite different opinions. Yeah, I don't know.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Do you believe in the Goucher Bubble?
I do not believe in the Goucher Bubble. I believe that we are a very open-minded school. I think everyone is always welcoming.
Do you guys believe in the Goucher Bubble?
Yes. This is one of the most active places that you could get it. Thank you. And I was like, thank God.
Very isolated. There's you don't have really, it feels like you don't have outside contact with the rest of the world to a certain extent.
Also have people. Do you believe in the Goucher Bubble?
Yes.
How would you describe the Goucher Bubble?
White liberalism at its finest. I don't think it hinders conversations. They can still definitely had. It's just you have a majority that will be overly represented when having those conversations, but it does make it a little bit more difficult to have them because you have a certain type of people being here and living here.
Yeah. Do you believe we should pop the bubble?
Yes and no. Yes, because this is a diverse climate that we live in, politically, socially, whatever. But at the same time, I think with most universities, especially liberal arts colleges, the whole advertisement and whole reasoning that you choose a school like Goucher is because of that bubble and because of the atmosphere that it creates, a sort of safety net, which is kind of one of the reasons that I wanted to be here, because it's a smaller environment. It's not like a public institution where it's just like huge. You can have like 50 million different types of people, which is like great and all, but it's like you can have that type of element while being in a small, intimate, I guess, like environment at the same time.
Thank you.
Yes, sort of. I kind of believe that it is true, yeah.
Do you believe that like having this like quote unquote bubble limits conversation at Goucher?
The bubble exists because of the nature, I guess, of, I don't know, the campus as a whole, like the kind of people who have opinions of the campus as a whole, right? And because of that, yeah, the bubble doesn't want to like talk to itself or to other bubbles.
Do you believe that there are ways to like create more conversation on campus?
Yeah, I think so, and people have definitely tried in the past, like pretty explicitly, and sometimes it works like for a second, you know, and then they don't, or they just don't like keep talking, and it's hard to tell if people are just uninterested and like have things to do, or if they just, I don't know, are segmented in their views.
Thank you.
No problem.
After hitting the mean streets of Van Meter, we decided to sit a couple students down and have a more in-depth conversation with them about what is the Goucher Bubble.
I think that the Goucher Bubble doesn't exactly train people for the real world, because I think we accommodate people a lot at the school, which is fine. However, I think when people graduate, they're in for like a very different kind of experience.
I would say it's a bubble because everyone here is pretty like-minded, like based off of like one side. Like I think the more people you talk to, maybe like the more like radical answers you'll get. But for the most part, everyone agrees on like a basic political agreement. So when you talk about things like that, you're always going to kind of get like one of the same answers. And so when you hear something from the other side, you're like really taken aback. And I feel like sometimes that stifles conversation. And so in the bubble with everyone agreeing like on like a big issue, I think sometimes it's really hard to have a non-biased way of looking at things.
The Goucher Bubble influences community and social interaction by like having a really strong bond within Goucher of the people who all think the same. But then if you don't agree with the common beliefs at Goucher, you're like on the outside.
The way we interact with one another affects us not getting to know everyone else.
I think that the idea that like everyone is accepting and like-minded is somewhat true, but also like the community, like Goucher's college campus has had like a lot of like problems with like last semester there was like a hate crime, and like there have been a lot of problems with anti-Semitism and stuff like that. So I think that there is like an underlying tension always.
Not at all. I think that people on even the closest of like right, like conservative or like just Republican, do not feel like comfortable talking in a classroom setting or outside of that, just because this is a very liberal dominated campus. And I think that if they do share their opinions, they're going to be either shot down or they're going to be like ridiculed for it. I feel bad for those people because I think that it should be an ongoing conversation no matter what. I've gone to like the Republican like meeting here. It's a very small club on campus, but like people are very empowered while they're there because they know it's a safe space for them to talk.
I think that when what happened last semester happened, there was good dialogue, but it was definitely one-sided kind of.
I think there's attempts to be good dialogue on campus, but no, because people are afraid of sharing opinions that like are not the same as the majority.
Yes and no. I think that we could definitely speak out more and get more differing opinions. I think that we stay to like one side of a lot of things.
Yes, but gradually. I don't think that it should be just like, oh yeah, let's like whatever we're doing, let's stop and change it completely. Because I think for a lot of colleges, they've tried doing that and it turns out very poorly.
I think that we definitely should. I personally am not in that much, I don't like Goucher that much. So personally, I do think that we should pop the bubble, because if we do, that'll definitely allow us to get more people from different areas to come to Goucher.
I don't know that we should pop the bubble, because like the reason Goucher is the way it is because people who go here are the way they are. But maybe we could lessen the bubble by just expanding ideas and having a safe community for everyone to coexist.
But I definitely think that if, as a campus, we could get a more worldly view, maybe not worldly, but a more like basic view where you can see both sides, because like I think it's fine to have your own like opinion, but I also think it's really interesting to hear what other people have to say. And that's like, we're here to learn and experience new things. And I think that you can't experience new things if you're only hearing one side of the story.
Thank you all so much for tuning into this week's episode. Abby and Ellie, I feel like we should talk about and debrief on this episode. A lot happened.
Yeah, I agree. I think there was a lot of things said that we thought people were going to say, especially about talking about the Goucher bubble and how it does feel like a bubble on campus. But at the same time, I think there were surprising parts where people disagreed and were like, no, there isn't a bubble.
I really agree. I also think that it was interesting to see how we thought about this single narrative of Goucher and how we saw that play out and how we see that in our school's culture, and thinking that
that there's no nuance in people's views, not leading to like a less honest dialogue on campus.
Yeah, definitely. I think that also points out how like in our culture, but also as a society, we often fail to look at the complexities and just how multifaceted our culture is.
And I agree. I think the dialogue on campus is something that's really not there at this moment in time, but I think there are times when hate crimes happen and stuff that the dialogue increases, but I still think that Goucher can do a lot better of a job at increasing this dialogue.
And I think that all of that just really influences like our social interactions and how like our school community assembles itself.
Mm-hmm. And there's also like so many good ideas about how to shift this by bringing in different speakers and really trying to expand sort of like what is a Goucher student.
So let's do that. See you next week.
Tune in!